Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and
to the republic
for which
it stands, one nation,
under
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Ms. Campos, will you please take the roll call?
Yes. Trustee Burdall,
Here.
Trustee Brocchini,
Here.
Trustee Doggett,
Here.
Trustee Levin,
Here.
Trustee Villalobos. Trustee Villalobos is absent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts meetings. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda items or non-agenda items, please submit your first and last name and agenda item you wish to speak on in the Q&A area of the webinar. Please do not submit comments or questions in the Q&A area. I will call each speaker up by one at a time to address the board. Your microphone will be unmuted and you may speak up to 3 minutes. After you have spoken, your microphone will be muted. Item 6, report out on closed session topics. The board met in closed session regarding conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. By a vote of 4-0, the board voted to provide direction to settle names on three separate anticipated litigations. Item 7, approval of the minutes of April 29th, 2020. Are there any questions regarding the minutes of April the minutes of April 29th, 2020? I'm going to call on each trustee now. Ms. Brocchini. You're muted.
No questions.
Ms. Burdall?
No questions.
And Ms. Doggett?
No questions.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 29th, 2020?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second the motion.
I think Ms. Burdall got in there first, so she gets the second. Ms. Campos, will you please take the roll call vote?
Yes.
Well, not the roll call vote, but the vote.
Yes. Trustee Burdall,
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini,
Yes.
Trustee Doggett,
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 8, approval of the minutes of May 6th, 2020 special governing board and board work study. Are there any questions regarding the minutes of May 6th, 2020 special meeting of the governing board and the board work study? Again, Ms.
No questions.
No questions.
Okay, Ms. Doggett?
No questions.
Thank you. I have no questions either. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 6, 2020 special meeting of the governing board and board work study?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll
And
second.
Thank you. Ms. Campos, will you please take the vote?
Trustee Burdall,
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini, Trustee Brocchini,
Yes.
Trustee Doggett,
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Item 9, approval of the minutes of May 6, 2020 special meeting of the governing board. I guess it seems like we covered both of these in item 8. Did we not? Both the special meeting and the board work study. So I'm wondering if 9 is superfluous.
I believe they were 2 separate meetings, President Levin.
Okay, okay. I'm just wondering because in item 8 it said special meeting of the governing board and board work study. So
Right, there was,
okay.
there was 2 special meetings on May 6th.
Okay, gotcha.
One was a closed session, one was not.
Understood. Okay. So let's do this one. Are there any questions regarding the minutes of the May 6, 2020 special meeting of the governing board? Ms. Borghini,
No question.
Ms. Bradall,
No questions?
Ms. Doggett,
No questions.
and I have no questions. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And a second.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Ms. Campos, please.
Oh. Okay, trustee Bradall,
Yes.
trustee Brocchini,
Yes.
trustee Doggett,
Yes.
trustee Levin.
Yes.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Item 10, approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the approval of the agenda and consent agenda? The order has changed, so Ms. Bradall,
No questions?
Ms. Brocchini,
No questions.
Ms. Doggett.
No questions.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second it. Ms. Campos, will you please take the vote?
Yes. Trustee Bradall,
Yes.
trustee Brocchini,
Yes.
may I clarify, trustee Brocchini?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm having internet.
That's okay. Trustee Doggett
Yes.
and trustee Levin.
Yes, thank you.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, item 11, communications. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda items or non-agenda items, please submit your first and last name and agenda item you wish to speak on in the Q&A area of the webinar. Please do not submit comments or questions in the Q&A area. I will call each speaker up one at a time to address the board. Your microphone will be unmuted and you may speak up to 3 minutes. After you have spoken, your microphone will be muted. And so I'm going to the Q&A area here. So nobody has signed up, but I would like to give everyone ample opportunity to do so. So we will give it a minute or two here for people to sign up. Or we can just go on to LSEA, CSEA, and then that'll give people time. So I'm going to call on LSEA first to come and provide public comment.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. And CSEA? Okay, so I don't think that there is anything from CSEA, but certainly speak up if you want to address the board. Got next, people wishing to address the board. And I don't see anybody yet, but I guess I'd like to kind of leave it sort of open. So we're going to just move on with the correspondence and the board superintendent communications. And if anybody writes in there, then I think I'll call on them. So correspondence, item 11D.
I received this morning an email from Nancy McGee indicating that they were going to fund $38,000 that we requested from a grant in the emergency phase of the pandemic, and it will pay for 2 things. It will cover our unreimbursed costs if we provide summer meals, And so that is approximately $18,000. And we would be delighted to extend our summer meal coverage through the summer. There are just a few federal requirements that we have to get past in terms of reimbursement, but I think we'll be able to do that, or at least be able to provide meals through June 30th. The second piece of funding is around as we get back the 1,000 Chromebooks at the end of this school year, they're going to need some tender care and perhaps some repair and some disinfecting. And so it is some extra hourly or funds to repair broken Chromebooks. So we were really delighted. That was the full amount that we asked for. And knowing that every district was submitting something, I didn't fully expect the full funding. And so in our expected tight times, we're really delighted to be funded for $38,000.
That's great news. Thank you.
That's awesome news. Great.
So board superintendent communications, who would like to start?
I don't really have any communications, but I did get to see one of the teacher parades finally, so I just wanted to share. I finally saw Sunset Ridge, and it was great.
Okay, I can go ahead and go. The main things that we've all been doing Zoom meetings. So the county superintendent meetings every Thursday, and the county elected official calls Wednesday and Fridays now. And then the music department meeting, it was nice to see all of them. And our main thing now is trying to figure out how to get all the instruments returned and disinfected and back to the schools. So what needs to be repaired and all that. So that's the biggest hurdle at the moment.
Thank you. Ms. Brocchini?
Yeah, so I've been on the same calls as Elizabeth and a few other people, but a couple things I want to mention is there is COVID testing for San Mateo County residents. If you go to smcstrong.org, are testing there for free, no cost to anyone. Go get tested, please. At that website, also in San Mateo County. So any parents that may need funding for their small business, that's a good place to check. So I just want to make sure that parents and people are aware of that.
Okay, thank you. I don't have too much to report other than my meetings with Superintendent Olson, and I'm not sure if I reported that I made a presentation to the Policy Analysis for California Education, and it was a special webinar talking about the budget crisis that the COVID-19 situation has brought on us. So this was a while back. So it was right when it was obviously before the governor announced his sort of revisions to the budget. But so anyway, I had to provide a little doom and gloom or prepare for the worst, I guess was my message there. But that's all I have to report.
I think Sue Beckmeyer is now wanting to speak.
Oh, okay, great. So, Sue, I'm
mute now.
I heard something. Sue, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right, Sue, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Yes. I was just wanting to speak on the crosswalk project near Cabrillo School. It may have been observed that there is a certain amount of standing water that has appeared since our weekend rains, and it did raise cause for concern among a few Cabrillo staff members and others. And I investigated, and I wanted to reassure everyone that while the project is not yet completed, it's performing as expected, in that when the landscaping is put in place, that moat that has recently appeared will be sucked up by the landscaping. Right now, there's no landscaping, so the water is standing. It looks like standing water in a couple of the areas near the crosswalk. So bottom line, it's a work in progress, not quite finished yet. And I did ask for some safety tape, caution tape, et cetera, to be put there because it does present a bit of a hazard right now, just in terms of the way that the water has pooled. But the project is ongoing and not yet completed. And I just wanted to say, so far so good. It looks really great. And if there were any questions about why is there standing water, that's why. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we are going to move on to item 12, presentations. And here we have resolutions of appreciation for retiring teachers and classified staff. And I will let Ms. Gavidia lead.
Thank you, Trustee Levin. It's hard to believe that we're at that time of the year again when we recognize those individuals who have dedicated so many years of their career to the Pacifica School District and have made the momentous decision to retire. We recognize and honor them each with resolutions, and I would like to present that will be presented by their supervisors, and I would like to introduce them and then hand it over to each of the supervisors to read the resolutions. First, we have Jeannie De La Rosa, and Principal Ellie Cundiff will read her resolution.
Hi. So, Jeannie De La Rosa. Do I just start or?
Yes. Go ahead, Ellie.
Sorry. Thanks. Hard to know what to do here. Resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, that whereas Jeannie De La Rosa has been a highly successful paraprofessional in the Pacifica School District since 1996, and whereas Ms. De La Rosa has enriched the lives of a countless number of students and their families in the Pacifica School District, and whereas Ms. De La Rosa has supported our students through her dedicated work with patience, love, and unending support, Ms. De La Rosa has gone above and beyond to ensure that children are well taken care of and continue to grow and develop not only their academics, but also their social emotional skills. She has a kind and calm manner that instantly makes children feel connected. And when she sees a child having a hard time, she's the first one to say words like, "Can I help you?" And whereas Ms. De La Rosa provided excellent support to her administrator, teachers, staff, and students, demonstrating incredible patience, caring, and pride in her work and school, Ms. De La Rosa is truly loved and respected by all and will be missed by her Sunset Ridge family and all who have had the pleasure to work with her. And whereas Ms. De La Rosa has fulfilled all her duties and responsibilities as a paraprofessional in a professional and highly exemplary manner, now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District extends its best wishes to Jeannie De La Rosa upon the occasion of her retirement following 23 years of faithful and dedicated service to public education, and extends its sincere best wishes for a rewarding and fulfilling future. Adopted today, May 20th, 2020.
Can we clap?
Jeannie, I'm giving you a hug. You're going to be missed. You are missed.
Okay, next we have Barbara.
Oh, don't we get to say some nice things, or do you want us to say the nice things all at the end?
Yeah.
Whatever you like.
I'd like to take the opportunity to say nice things between each. And when you were at Sunset Ridge back in the old days when we were at campus, Jeannie would be from one place to the next. You could start with her being in second grade and she was working with students, and then you'd get to the other side of the building and she was doing a blood sugar analysis on another kid in another part of campus, and that's a big campus. So Jeannie, we will truly miss you. Thank you I'm going to have a hard time not crying today, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Barbara Falk, who actually retired in December. We hope she came back today so that we could honor her. And her supervisor, Jen Gray, will read her resolution.
Okay. Hi. So Barbara Falk, resolved by the Board of Trustees of Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, that whereas Barbara Falk has been a highly successful school secretary in the Pacifica School District since 1996, and whereas Ms. Falk has enriched the lives of a countless number of students and their families in the Pacifica School District, and whereas Ms. Falk has supported our students through her dedicated work, both at Lindemar Educational Center and across the entire school district. She is a role model and inspiration to students and staff alike. Every time a student walks through the door, Barbara lights up with a smile that's contagious to all. Her kind, easygoing, generous spirit made everyone want to work alongside her. Her organization and wealth of knowledge inspired us all to grow. Her encouragement, reliability, and sound advice made everyone know they had a trusted colleague and friend. And whereas Ms. Falk provided excellent support to her administrator, teachers, staff, and students, demonstrating incredible patience, caring, and pride in her work and school. Ms. Falk was truly loved and respected by all. And whereas Ms. Falk has fulfilled all of her duties and responsibilities as a school secretary in a professional and highly exemplary manner. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District extends its best wishes to Barbara Falk upon the occasion of her retirement following 35 years of faithful and dedicated service to public education, and extends its sincere best wishes for rewarding and fulfilling future. Passed and adopted this 20th day of May. We miss you, Barbara.
So before I just before we say really nice things about Barbara, Sue Beckmeyer did put in the QA that she was hoping to speak about Jeannie De La Rosa as well. So maybe we can let Sue do that really quickly.
Sure. Okay, so with your permission, I'll go ahead and speak to both Jeannie and Barbara at
Absolutely.
this juncture.
Absolutely.
Jeannie is one of those long-standing classified employees that is just such a great example of, as Heather mentioned, flexibility, adaptability, willingness to work with you, willingness to do whatever is needed, and a major focus on the kids. She was originally classified as an instructional aide. And there was a point in time in the past where instructional aides were joined into the paraprofessional classification. And Jeannie was uncertain about that at the time that it occurred. It was scary. It was uncertain. It was new. And she was very willing to try and to jump on and to get trained. And so the issue, we also combine paraprofessional and health aide. And so the issue that Heather mentioned about checking a student's diabetes, this is, I don't want to say life and death stuff, but serious medical issues with students. And Jeannie was always able to establish those relationships with the kids, with their parents, with the families. And so I just really have to say that she was really kind of an inspiration to me. And, we always joke, there's a few of us that have been around for a while. So it's like, who's the highest on the seniority list? And Jeannie was right up there. So having her move on to her next phase is really exciting, and I'm thrilled for her. But it also kind of makes me a little sad to see that seniority list change. So thanks, Jeannie, for all your work over the years. You were amazing and really, truly an inspiration. Barbara Falk, I have to say, You know, over time, I was fortunate enough to learn a nickname for her, which is Auntie Barb, because she lived next door to a friend of mine. And it was long before I realized that we were coworkers. So when I got to encounter her as a coworker, that was even more fun. And every time I got to see her at LMEC, it was like, "Hi, Auntie Barb, how are you?" But absolutely so friendly, so easygoing, so pleasant. Always put every situation at ease. And you know, there's an unpredictability that can occur at LMEC, and she was just the right person for the job, and definitely missed. So thank you, Barbara.
Thank you for those kind words, Sue.
So I met Barbara on my first interview date with the Pacifica School District, and in many ways she personifies the Pacifica School District and the friendliness and the describing the horses in the back on the hill. I met both she and Suzanne at the same time. And so while I only got to work with her for a short period of time, first impressions last. She's very friendly and professional. The other part that I don't want to get overlooked is the impression that Barbara had on our current employees. She's been a mentor to a number of clerical staff, and people go to her for questions. And so we truly appreciate your service to our school and our students, and we miss you already.
Thank you. Next is Joanne Frediani and her supervisor, Ms. Ellie Cundiff.
So I'm going to try not to get teary, and I'll do my best for you, Joanne. Resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, that whereas Joanne Frediani has been a highly successful second grade teacher in the Pacifica School District since 2003, and whereas Ms. Frediani has enriched the lives of countless number of students and their families in the Pacifica School District, and whereas Ms. Frediani has supported our students through her dedicated work and with such love and kindness that allowed each child to blossom into the unique individuals that they are. With patience and humor, Ms. Frediani developed lessons that met the needs of each child. She gathered children on the carpet and shared stories and strategies that inspired anyone who was listening to go off and get lost in a book or become a famous nonfiction author or become intrigued with numbers. With countless paper clips in hand, she fearlessly allowed students to build paperclip chains and hung them around the room. And whereas Ms. Frediani provided excellent support to her administrator, teachers, staff, and students, demonstrating incredible patience, caring, and pride in her work and school, Ms. Frediani is truly loved and respected by all and will be missed at our Friday morning coffee talks, our instructional leadership team meetings, our site lit meetings, and our site math meetings, to name just a few things that Ms. Frediani takes part in. And whereas Ms. Frediani has fulfilled all her duties and responsibilities as a teacher in a professional and highly exemplary manner, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District extend its best wishes to Joanne Frediani upon the occasion of her retirement following 17 years of faithful and dedicated service to public education, and extends its sincere best wishes for a rewarding and fulfilling future. Adopted on this day, 20th day of May, 2020. Joanne, you've done an amazing job and you will be greatly missed.
Just to jump in, is I have always enjoyed being in Joanne's class. Her kids, she lets her kids' personality shine. And while as a teacher, one always loves sarcasm and humor, she really gets what second graders need. And I really thank you for your your attention to instruction. You realized how important every minute was, and you've made a big impact on our students, and we will miss you. So congratulations on your retirement. It's a bittersweet moment. We're very happy for you, but also thank you very much, Joanne. You forgot to clap.
It doesn't feel real, right? Like this is so weird.
Yeah, the virtual piece is a little bit hard because you miss the feedback that you get from the audience.
Yeah, it's true. Next, we have Monique Delaser Graziani, and I'm one of her supervisors, so I will read her resolution. Monique, I hope you're out there. Resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, that whereas Monique Delaser Graziani has been a highly successful van driver and child nutrition cook in the Pacifica School District since 2001, and whereas Ms. Delaser Graziani has enriched the lives of countless number of students and their families in the Pacifica School District, and whereas Ms. Delaser Graziani has supported our students through her dedicated work in transportation and with the Child Nutrition Department, by truly displaying superpowers, speedy and knowledgeable on the POS system, a powerful work ethic with a can-do attitude, and the ability to instantly put a smile on a child's face with a kind word of encouragement. We will all miss her pleasant demeanor and amazing talents. Whereas Ms. Delaser Graziani provided excellent support to her administrators, teachers, staff, and students, demonstrating incredible patience, caring, and pride in her work and school. Ms. Delaser Graziani was truly loved and respected by all. And whereas Ms. Delaser Graziani has fulfilled all her duties and responsibilities as a van driver and child nutrition cook in a professional and highly exemplary manner. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District extends its best wishes to Monique Delaser Graziani upon the occasion of her retirement following 19 years of faithful and dedicated service to public education, and extends its sincere best wishes for a rewarding and fulfilling future. Regularly passed and adopted this 20th day of May, 2020. And Monique, when I think about you and how what a fabulous person you are, of all people to drive our children where they need to be so that they can receive the special services that they need, I always knew that in your care they were safe and they would arrive where they needed to be, safe and sound. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to know you and to work with you for these last years. Thank you so much for your service.
I would like to also, is it okay if I also say something? Sorry to interrupt.
Absolutely. And Josie, after you, Sue Beckmeyer would like to say something as well.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just want to say, Monique, we are really going to miss you here in the district office. You've done so much more than transportation and child nutrition. Monique has always been stepping up to help us here in the district office with anything we need, whether it be payroll filing or anything for child nutrition. She has been a pleasure to work with and such a positive, cheerful attitude. We are really going to miss you here in the district office. I hope you consider coming back and subbing for us periodically. Thank you so much.
Jumping in with just 2 words is that I don't know Monique personally that well, but I do know that she is an exceptional professional, trustworthy employee, and she is extraordinary. So we will miss her.
I can't agree more with the last statements that were made and with the resolution. Monique is amazingly resilient. I had the great honor to work with her the entire time that I've worked for the district in various capacities. And there were many times that the nature of her job changed through absolutely no fault of hers. It had to do with, her driver position originally was she used to drive food to Brisbane and to Bayshore District because we had agreements with them where we were providing. So she was not only serving the students of Pacifica, she was serving neighboring districts as well. And there were times when our calendars would not align or there would be some emergency and we wouldn't be in session, but they would be. And she was right there, and the rest of our child nutrition staff getting that food out to them. So, I mean, that's just one example. Josie mentioned, and she's absolutely right, the most pleasant personality, the most easygoing, willing to adapt to whatever came. And that's a good thing because her job changed a lot over the time that she was with us. And I had to be involved in a lot of those changes, and I can't tell you how kindly Monique responded to anything that we had to do in regard to her positions over time. And it was not always easy. So again, another staff member that exhibited and exhibits the highest values of what I see in Pacifica School District staff. And we're going to miss you so much, Monique. But I am so happy for you that you're moving on to your next chapter, and wonderful for you. So thank you again for everything you've did for us and for all of the students over the years.
Okay, and our last retiree is Maureen Manis, and her principal, Ms. Monica Lobeo, will read her resolution. Is Monica here? Yes, she is.
Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi, Maureen. I know you're probably out there. Resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, that whereas Maureen Manis has been a highly successful classroom teacher in the Pacifica School District since 2003, and whereas Ms. Manis has enriched the lives of a countless number of students and their families in the Pacifica School District, and whereas Ms. Manis has supported our students through her dedicated work with enriching students' lives, provided a variety of engaging learning opportunities for her students, as well as meaningful field trips and experiences to support learning. Whereas Ms. Manis provided excellent support to her administrator, teachers, staff, and students, acting as a mentor teacher for new staff members, demonstrating incredible patience, caring, and pride in her work and school. Ms. Manis was truly loved and respected by all. And whereas Ms. Manis has fulfilled all her duties and responsibilities as a teacher in a professional and highly exemplary manner. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District extends its best wishes to Maureen Manis upon the occasion of her retirement following 23 years of faithful and dedicated service to public education, and extends its sincere best wishes for a rewarding and fulfilling future. Regularly passed and adopted this 20th day of May 2020. Maureen, I can't thank you enough. I know you know that I'm going to miss you so much, and all of Valimar will as well. I know I'll be seeing you around, so this isn't goodbye, but thank you so much for all you've done for all of us.
I'd like to say one thing.
Go ahead, Linda.
Maureen, actually, Maureen actually taught both of my children, and she is not on campus and just a great human being. I see it, but there it is. She'll know what that means. We love her. So thank you, Maureen, for everything.
I'll just tell a very quick Maureen Manis story. Is that on the day that Ocean Shore School reported to IBL, I walked in the gym and there's Maureen Manis, Valimar teacher, who is there to take care of other people. I think most of her colleagues would agree that she's very much a team player, and she was not okay with the Ocean Shore teachers being out there on their own and wanted to show up because she could help. So it was her job share day off, and she's like, how can I help? And I think that just exemplifies Maureen's spirit and her team workiness. And so I'm glad to hear that we'll be seeing you around, but we really do appreciate your service to our students and our teachers. Thank you. Oh.
And that's the end of our presentation for this evening.
Great. Thank you so much for all the kind words and the resolutions. I am going to call upon my fellow trustees to ask any questions or make any statements that they want. And the first picture on my screen here is Ms. Bradall.
Well, I just want to say, it's so many years worth of service, and they all did such a wonderful job, and a wonderful job for the district and for the kids. And it's such an odd year to be going out that I, wish we could have a party, everybody together, but I'm sure everybody does.
Thank you. And Ms. Brocchini?
Yeah, again, I just want to thank you all so much for your service, everything you've done for the children in this district, and thank you. You'll be missed.
Thank you. And Ms. Doggett?
Also, I just want to say thank you all for everything that you've done for the district and for the children.
And I want to reiterate all of that. All of you have spent your careers doing arguably the most important thing, which is trying to our kids' lives. These are the people that are going to inherit this world from us, and we've got to invest in them, and you've certainly done that. So thank you so much for all of your effort. So we are going to, I need a motion to approve these resolutions.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Great. And will you please take the vote, Ms. Campos?
Yes. Trustee Bradall.
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini.
Yes.
Trustee Doggett.
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We're going to go on to item 13, district business, district goals. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our agenda online public page or by visiting the district website, www.pacificasd.org, under District Information, Board of Trustees. Item 13A, Public Hearing, Budget 2020-2021. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, thank you. I'll just give Will a moment to bring it up on the screen. There we go. So we're going to review again the 2020-2021 budget for Pacifica School District. I know we talked a little bit about it in the last board meeting, but we have a little bit more details for you. And Will, if you can go ahead and move to the next slide, it's really just a summary of what we're going to be going over tonight. And I encourage the board members to stop and ask any questions at any time. I can pause at the end of each slide, give a slight pause, or just please feel free to chime in and ask anytime. So go ahead and move on to the next slide, Will. The first thing we're going to talk about is a little bit about the state budget update. And this is kind of a repeat from last time. We all know that the state is having severe shortfalls in their budget. There's a possible shortfall of $35 billion next year, and it could be as high as $85 billion in the years to come. So luckily, we do have that rainy day fund in the state of California, but unfortunately, it will be fully expended. It won't exist after 3 years. If the forecasts that they're saying today are accurate, there will be no more rainy day fund. So please go ahead and continue, Will. One of the things that we're looking at is some emergency funding. You hear about federal funding and state funding. Here's what we know today, and just kind of to preempt this budget was presented and was created prior to the May revision coming out, and so I did attend the May revision yesterday, and none of those details are in this budget. So what I will do is try and give you a little bit as we go along of what has changed or what we think has changed. Just keep in mind that even though now we have the May revision, it's not until it goes through the legislative process and until the end of June that we'll know the final state budget. And the news is the same. We're not going to know the real budget until August. So we're just working off the best information that we have at this time. And I'll try to give you small updates as we go along. So emergency funding, federal funding, you've heard a lot about the CARES Act. The way the CARES Act is going to work is it's going to be allocated to school districts based on their Title I percentages. So the estimate for Pacifica is about $82,000. California, we have received an allocation from the state of California. They're going to give us $52,000. It's already set up in our budget for this year, and it is already fully expended. We've already exceeded the $52,000. And I did kind of skip over the governor's flexible education spending. There's about $320 million. We don't really know how that's going to be distributed at this time. And then Dr. Olson shared some good news with the grant that she applied for. And so Pacifica is luckily awarded some of those funds. As she mentioned, it's for child nutrition. And hopefully we can also use some funds in the future for mental health services next year. So again, our objective is to give you a detailed budget. Attached to the board agenda is the detailed budget. It's over 100 plus pages. So we're trying to summarize it here for you in this presentation. You'll see detailed multi-year projections. And then again, we have to certify our budget based on our financial situation. So just a kind of a review, a positive certification means the district can meet its budget obligations for the current year and then the 2 subsequent years. Qualified means you may not be able to meet your financial obligations for the current year or the 2 subsequent years. And then negative, you would be unable to meet your financial obligations for the current year. And unfortunately, Pacifica is not going to be able to file a positive budget status at this time. I've been in conversations with the County Office of Ed how to proceed. And, based on the current information, Pacifica is qualified. The county office will approve our budget conditionally, and likely at first interim, when all the information is known, we could determine whether or not Pacifica is qualified or negative. So I'll go on and you can kind of see the details of how we arrive at that, at those assumptions. So for Pacifica, in this budget, because it was prepared 2 weeks ago, we put in a negative 1% COLA for the 2020-21 school year. At that time, the county had kind of been advising a 0% COLA, but just in hearing the news, we thought 1% would be something to look at. I have a slide going forward that shows what 0% is. After listening to the May revise yesterday, Governor Newsom has proposed a 10% reduction across the board for school districts. And he has some remediated factors, but for the LCFF funding, it would be a is a 10% reduction in LCFF funding. So that's not what I have prepared this budget with at this time. Average daily attendance, we're looking at 2,968 students, and then there's a little bit of a breakdown of some of the other students that we count in our district. So you can go ahead, Will, move forward. So supplemental and concentration funding, we're just at the 24% in that area. Many districts, neighboring school districts receive concentration funding because they're well over 50%. And again, what is supplemental and concentration funding? That's the additional funding that we get for students of need, the free and reduced students, the English learners, and foster youth. So we do not qualify for that higher level of funding. Lottery, we budgeted as pretty flat, and based on listening to the school services and legislative analyst, it looks like it will be, or there could be some reductions in this area. Mandated block grant remains the same at $32 per student, and there's no discretionary funds built into these budgets. Governor Newsom had given some early intervention funds in the 2019-20 school year. We have not budgeted any of those funds, and they were not in his proposal at this time. We budgeted the CalSTRS at 18.4 and CalPERS at 22.68%. Now, in Governor Newsom's budget, some of the efforts he's making to help school districts, he's proposing to reduce the employer portion of CalSTRS and CalPERS, about 2% for CalSTRS and a little bit under 2% for CalPERS. And the way he's proposing this is to reduce what he had been putting out as reducing the state's share of CalSTRS and CalPERS. So it's really just a shift in funds. The CalSTRS and CalPERS will not receive more funds for the pool. It will really just be a state from the employer paying less, well, the state paying less and the employer paying less. So the legislative analyst did not think that was a good, in his write-up today, did not think that was a good solution for the long term. And then going on, our health benefits are projected to increase by 5%. We are projecting to continuing to support the Child Nutrition Fund. All districts in our area and across the United States are having difficulties in balancing their Child Nutrition Fund at this time. And so that is something that we have to look at, is supporting the feeding program for the students. This is a repeat of what we've reviewed prior. The board did make some hard decisions in March, a couple months ago, and we did put some reductions into our 2020-21 budget. We reduced teaching staff based on our projected enrollment. We will continue to review enrollment and staff very tight moving forward. We did decrease the specialist staffing, and there was a decrease of 1 custodial FTE. That is one area that we have to really reevaluate with the cleaning of COVID-19 in our schools. We also decreased the VP at Cabrillo, Valley Mar, and Ocean Shore, and then the lead stipend. So the board made close to, just over 900,000 of budget reductions in March. We knew we were deficit spending, and we knew we had to make these reductions. However, that is not going to be enough moving forward into the 2020-21 school year. We're really going to have to reevaluate where we can make more cuts. This is really a snapshot. You've seen this before. It's just shows you the funds. This is the combined funds for Pacifica School District. And the green, you can see that almost all of our funds come from the state. We're highly dependent on the state funding, and that is our funding per student. It's called general purpose funds. We receive very little federal funds. When you hear Title I, Title II, we receive only 3% of our budget is federal funding. Other state revenues is like the lottery and mandate block grant is only 7%. And then local revenues, that really is our parcel tax and Pacifica Education Foundation. Any grants that we receive is local revenues. So the majority of our budget really is, we're dependent on the state for our funding. And then expenditures, There's a few pie charts here. The first one is really our unrestricted budget. That's the one we talk about the most. And when you look at this chart, you can see 90% of our expenditures is our employee costs. That's how we run the school district. It's our employees. Very little is going towards other things like books and supplies and operations. Certificated salaries is 46%, classified 12%, and our benefits are 32% to make up the 90%. And then combined, this is just a snapshot when you combine the unrestricted fund, general fund, with restricted, it comes down to about 81% of our expenditures is salary and benefits. And that's really because on the restricted side, you have a lot more contracted services like speech, a lot of special ed contracted services. And so there's more contracted services, it brings the employee portion down. And then the next chart shows you one of our board members had asked for a further breakdown of employee costs, showing how much are the management costs. So this breaks it, the 81% down to show you how much is teachers, how much are certificated management, the administrators, classified salaries, and then the classified managers. So the administrators is 5% for certificated and just under 2% for classified. So within our budget, we always want to let you know how much is being transferred from the unrestricted general fund. And so the current law is you have to make a 3% contribution to what's called restricted routine maintenance. And that is really all of the maintenance department and all of the vehicles and services that they perform. And that's $990,000. And then special education is severely underfunded by the state and federal government. So we have to make up the difference to serve our students. And it's at 4.2, almost 4.3 million. It's reaching that 60% threshold of our budget. And so that's just an issue with not receiving enough funds from the federal and state government. And the same with child nutrition. If we were really to be able to feed our children highly nutritious meals, we would receive more funds from the federal and state government, and we don't. So these are the transfers coming out of the unrestricted budget into other programs. So here's a snapshot. There is more detailed in our forms that follow, but here's a snapshot of our general fund with a negative 1% COLA. So the unrestricted side is really what you want to focus on. The revenues are just over 26.5 million. And then our expenditures, that's before the contributions that I went over in the prior slide. And when you count the contributions, we have a deficit of $118,000 in the projected budget for 2021. Now, what's a little bit misleading that you would see in the detail is that includes a transfer from Fund 17, our special reserve fund. It's an additional reserve of $625,000. So in order to submit this 2021 budget to the county, we have to have 3% in the general fund. We couldn't make 3% without transferring $625,000 from Fund 17. So this is just the 2021 school year. If you go to the next slide, Will, I think, okay, this is the components. So here's the components of what's in the general fund. It just shows you the breakdown. We have a small revolving cash account. There's restricted ending funds. It's like the low performing student block grant or any other restricted lottery funds that are not spent at the end of the year. And then the reserve. So we're projecting to end 2021 with a $1.3 million in the general fund, counting the money we transferred from Fund 17 into this fund. So now I wanted to just kind of give you a snapshot of all the district's funds. And this is a snapshot of where we're starting the year in 2021 and then where we will end at the end of 2021. So the general fund, unrestricted, it shows the beginning balance. This is combined. unrestricted and restricted, 1.9 million, and goes down by 625,000 for 1.3 million. And then the cafeteria fund, even with a budgeted transfer in 2021, we still have a deficit in that fund. And you can see the ending fund balance go down to 81,000. That's really not enough to have in your child nutrition fund because you have to fund the monthly payroll and food costs for that fund. So that balance is getting too low for us to maintain. Deferred maintenance, this is a fund where the state created to help school districts fund all of the fix-it things like the paving, the roofing, the carpets, all of those things that we need to do on a regular basis, even though they call it deferred maintenance. And the state used to put in 140,000, and then the district would match 140,000. Many years ago, or several years ago, the state no longer put those funds in because they moved to what's called the LCFF funding formula. So they said it's all local control funds, and so now you guys decide how you're going to fund those deferred maintenance. Well, back then, our board chose to put 240,000 because we need to fix things. And as the budget deficit grew, we reduced it down to 40,000. So right now, that fund is really only getting 40,000 of LCFF funds, and we're pretty much spending it every year because you can see the projects being done that are outside the bond program. They're little fix-it type projects. Special reserve, that's Fund 17, and so we were starting with over 750,000, and now we're transferring net of interest earnings. We're transferring the money into the general fund. We're going to have a balance of $140,000 left after the end of next year. Other post-employment retirement benefits is Fund 20, and that is the fund where we have kept the cash for paying our retirees. In our district, a retiree who works for the school district for a certain length of time gets their single medical and dental covered for up to 10 years. And then even after that, the district continues to pay a CalPERS fee on behalf of those retirees. And so the 883,000 is the one is really meant to be 1 year of payments. It was much less than that. It was in the $600,000 or $700,000 range this past year, but it fluctuates based on how many retirees you have from year to year. And so we've just kept that balance in there to fund those retirees on a year-by-year basis. In reality, we have an actuary report that's done, and we should have over $10.5 million in that fund because that's your true liability. If we were to cease operations today, you would need $10.5 million to pay for the current retirement, the current retirees. And so it sounds like, oh, you have 800,000. That's not really enough for that fund either. And then the building fund, that's our bond measure, and we are moving forward with projects. And so you'll see that balance declining as the projects proceed over the next year. And then there's capital facilities. This is a highly restricted fund, and this is revenues you get from development in Pacifica. The Jefferson High School collects it on our behalf. They're called developer fees. And you can only use the funds in areas of enrollment growth. So we have not really been able to use these funds. 500,000 is really not enough to put in some big improvements. But now with the facility master plan and the bond measure, we do have some projects set aside that we can use these funds for. And so we've earmarked those to match the facilities master plan. And then capital outlay fund 40. This is the fund where we deposited the sale of Fairmont, sale of site funds. And so that is where we are drawing the funds to pay for the Odstad workforce housing project. So that's a summary of all the funds and what we think it's going to look like for next year. And then just going on, now part of the budget adoption is you have to also look at your subsequent years. You have to look 2 years out. So we put down 2019-20 and then the 3 years that we have to submit to the county. So this scenario really shows a negative 1% COLA in the first 2 years. The 2%, in speaking to the county 2 weeks ago, they felt it was reasonable to assume that there would be a recovery period for California and that we could possibly, budget this growth in 2022-23. Again, it's so unknown at this time. We really need to see what happens in August. Obviously, the -1% at this time is not enough. One of the things I forgot to mention earlier was in Newsom's budget, he says 10% reduction for districts across the board, but he's also saying if the HEROES funds, I don't know if you guys heard, the federal government is talking about the HEROES funds. If those come in, he's going to do what's called a trigger off. And so he would trigger off that 10% reduction if he was to receive federal funds. So that's another one of those things that we have to look out for. It's really unknown at this time. And then again, this sheet really just summarizes the assumptions in the multi-year, the STRS and PERS rates, lottery, special ed early intervention grant. That's the one I told you that we received this year. We're not budgeting to receive that in future years. And then again, this is a summary of our assumptions, the -1% COLA. And as far as attendance and ADA, we really don't know the enrollment right now. It's been flat for us. In this budget, I did build in a drop in enrollment of just 20 students, which reflects an ADA of loss of 16 students. That's just a guess right now. We're hoping that we can maintain our enrollment going forward. And then we have to use the remaining funds in Fund 17 in 21-22. That fund will be fully depleted. And again, the next slide is some additional assumptions. Our employees receive step and column increases each year, both classified and certificated staff. That's on the salary schedule. For each year you move up, there's a percentage increase, and some steps you stay on for a couple of years, but in general, it's about a 1.5% increase. One of the questions I received from one of the trustees was, what is the cost of step and column? And so it has been pretty consistent for our school district from year to year. It's currently at about $180,000 to $190,000 for the certificated side, and about $65,000 to $70,000 for classified. Now, in some years, you have retirements, and that would offset your step and column. We don't have enough retirements currently to offset the full step and column, so we budget the full step and column, and then as the staffing finalizes in the fall, we'll have a better picture if there was an offset to that or not. And then pension costs, we'll go over that in the next slide. Health and welfare is a 5% increase. Support for the child nutrition program. And then another assumption that we're making in these multi-years is that our special ed costs will continue to rise by $200,000. We don't believe that the funding will increase in proportion to our expenditures. And so it has been consistently increasing from year to year. And we put that in the budget, an increase of $200,000 for the next 2 years. And then going forward, we removed any one-time costs that were reflected in the budget. So the next slide is really, so you can see the snapshot of our retirement from 2013. This is what we pay on behalf of our employees. It's pretty much doubled, both the STRS and the PERS. So that's a big chunk of our budget goes into funding the state retirement program. Here's a very summarized 3-year projection. You can see the first line is our deficit without getting any assistance. The second line is our special reserve assistance, $625,000 in the first year, and then $141,000 the second year. And then, excuse me, you can see our ending fund balance goes down to just meeting our reserve in 2021. And then 21-22 and 22-23, our district can no longer meet our minimum reserve requirements. I don't know if there's any questions on this slide. Okay. So not being able to meet the 3% is where we'll be filing the qualified or negative budget certification. I only put this slide in because the initial instruction was to assume a 0% COLA. And you can see, even if it's a 0% COLA, the district still cannot meet its 3% reserve requirement. So imagine if it's a 10% reduction. It's really unattainable. So as a review, why does Pacifica have so many financial challenges? We have had declining enrollment in the past. Right now it's flat. Being an LCFF funded school district is very difficult, especially during this time. If you were basic aid or community funded, you wouldn't really worry about your enrollment declining because you would still receive the same amount of funds. We are so highly dependent on the state of California for our funding. And then we have all of these increases in costs. So that is just a brief summary of our financial challenges. So in talking to the county, I put forth that we would be self-certifying as qualified because in the assumptions we made, we were able to meet the requirement in 2020-21. They said that they would pass the budget with a conditional review and that we would have to relook at things I put second interim on the top of that slide. That's a typo. It should be 2021 budget adoption. So the conversations now is we're going to have to put forth a budget. We don't know the exact reductions. You know, I put minus 1% COLA. The governor's saying it could be 10%, but then he would trigger it off if he got the HEROES funding. So we're going to submit the budget with the best information that we have, and we will just self-certify as qualified and again review this in first interim once we have the numbers in August. So I think that's the presentation. There's a lot of documentation attached to this budget. I did have the pleasure of talking to a couple of the trustees and going and reviewing some of this with them. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them now or also at another time before we actually adopt the budget, because it is a lot of information in this packet. So I'd be happy to take questions or comments or some guidance on how you want to see things as we move forward.
Josie, can I jump in just as a really quick point of clarification? So on slide 10, I'll ask Will to go back to slide 10 where we talk about the budget reductions. Remember, a lot's happened between now and March 11th, but the decrease in custodial FTE, that was never action that the board took. What we decided was that we would look at possibly not filling an open position. And so just as a point of clarification, that was never a real reduction. We thought we'd get the savings in not filling the additional position, but who knows now with the COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that, because we are really struggling with that vacant position right now with the absences and all, and just not knowing how much cleaning we're going to be doing going forward. So that is still a position in our district. It just is going unfilled at this time.
Josie, I was just wondering with the child nutrition, every school district in the United States is going to be having the same deficit, trying to feed everyone as they should be trying to feed everyone. Is that been added in the CARES Act or the HEROES Act, or is that something that we should push them to file separately from the government?
That's a good question. It is in the conference that I attended yesterday, there was talk that there was something, I don't know if it was the HEROES Act or the CARES Act, that there was some look at helping out with child nutrition. So there's talk out there. I haven't seen anything that's been passed that says that you're going to get this money for child nutrition. but there has been some talk that it's in the federal funding or in part of the federal funding.
Because that's something that I'm sure every district in the United States is dealing with at the moment, and that should be picked up by the feds.
Yes, and it would, if they could also increase our reimbursement rates, that would help. But I'm hopeful that it's part of that HEROES Act funding, if that were to pass.
So, Josie, I just wanted to thank you. This presentation, it was actually really, really clear. I guess my question is, I have a pretty good idea of where we stand, and it's pretty much where I expected it. There's still a lot of unknowns, so I guess August is going to tell all. But could you please remind all of us the implications of having negative certification multiple years in a row? So what happens there? And again, this sort of speaks to what Elizabeth was talking about in terms of everybody's facing this. I'm wondering whether we might find a bit more leniency as more and more districts are likely to just certify it, put in a qualified or even a negative. I mean, I expect that there's a surge, and that FCMAT is expecting this kind of tsunami of qualified and negative claims coming in. But can you just, the question is, could you please just tell us what the implications of filing negative are, say, multiple years in a row?
Okay, that's a great question. So the first one is qualified. It is kind of a quick review of that. Qualified is you may or may not be able to meet your obligations, and that brings on county oversight. And the state did present some funding to county offices about a year ago so that they could have stricter county oversight. And so qualified would be working directly with the county, and they would have oversight over us. Negative goes further into a state oversight, and that's where you hear that FCMAT, the Federal Crisis Management something team, it's a state entity, actually comes into the district. I'm sure you heard of it at Oakland Unified and some other areas, but negative is where the state comes in, and I believe like the board loses some authority, and of course the superintendent and the CBO also lose authority, and the state can come in and run your district. And you mentioned that, there's a lot of districts in this situation. There are, but I think we're in a little bit of a more difficult situation because we have not maintained our reserves at an adequate level. We said we wanted 6% reserve. We went down to almost 3%. We always we're going almost down to 3%. So Pacifica's in a much more difficult situation, not having those reserves to even pull us through 1 year of a 10% reduction. And the community funded districts, of course, are in a much better position than the LCFF funded districts. Does that answer your question, Jesse?
You're muted, Jesse. We don't hear you.
My bad. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, to your point of our lack of reserves, I think just as a comparison, I think what the statewide average for elementary districts is somewhere around 18%. Is that right?
Yes, it is. And they just actually posted that again in the conference yesterday. They had the statewide average from last year and the statewide average from this year. And I believe you're right. It was around 18% for elementary school districts.
Yeah. So maybe there's not going to be a tsunami that FCMAT's going to have to deal with, but certainly there's going to be several districts in the lower range of that distribution, right? Like us, that are really cutting it close to the 3% and poised to hit that 3%.
Yeah, you're right. I just pulled up the slide. It's elementary school districts from 18-19 were at 20%. And in the commentary they made yesterday was, if you're in that average, you're going to be in trouble. Well, we're far below that average.
So yeah. Can I ask a follow-up to Jesse's question then?
Mm-hmm.
And so you said the county would come and give us guidance. So what kind of guidance is that?
They'll be reviewing our budget, and I'm sure Dr. Olson and I would be in meetings with the county fiscal department, and they will be just really taking a detailed look at our budget and making suggestions. Sometimes they even send one of their county staff to come in and work in the district to oversee the fiscal operations of the district.
Thank you.
So once you file negatively, is there any steadfast rule as to when they say we're taking over? They being the state.
You know, I don't know. That'd be something I could look into some more. I don't know it exactly.
I mean, clearly in places like Oakland's past experience. I mean, they were declaring bankruptcy, I believe, right? They were going to be insolvent.
Exactly. And right. If you're going to go negative, the state has to come in and try to figure out how to get you back to a positive situation and pay back the money that you owe.
Yeah. Okay. I think my only other question is that there's still I think Newsom called it the trigger off. So it's basically saying, listen, we've got these planned budget reductions, but if we get money from the feds, then we'll fill in part of those planned cuts with money that we get from the feds. Any shortfalls, though, are they're still promising deferrals, right? So we're going back to the same strategy. Is that correct? That the same strategy as in the Great Recession, where the money that we should have gotten under LCFF is still promised to us at a later date.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Jesse. I didn't have that in the presentation. We didn't know that exactly until yesterday, but Newsom did say that he will be deferring the June apportionment to school districts into July. And what he means by deferring is we're not going to receive our LCFF funds in June. And for our school district, that's $2.9 million. And the state will pay it to us in July. So the state is helping its budget by not counting it in June. Now we have to count it, in our fund balance, but our cash balance will be short by $2.9 million. And so in the next board meeting, I will be bringing forth a resolution to the board to ask the board to borrow funds from other funds. And I'm still trying to work those details out of how much we can borrow and will it be enough. I'm also working closely with the county office to see if she can help us borrow. She was trying to put together a loan so there's several of us school districts. It's not a lot. It's maybe 3 of us that are having this cash flow issue in June. And so I'm glad you brought that up because that is a big issue for us for this year. We were not anticipating that to happen this year. It's very little notice they're giving us, only a month's notice. And then going into next year, he's going to continue what he calls deferrals. And it's not going to just be for June. There'll be other months during the school year where the state won't pay you the month that you're owed the money, and then they'll pay you the next month. Well, that's going to create negative cash for Pacifica and, of course, negative interest or additional loan costs. So that's another issue that I didn't have in this presentation, but it is a very serious issue for our school district.
Okay, and going through the county, we're hoping that the loan, the cost of the loan might be better. The terms might be better if we pool the loan with other districts and go through the county, and the county guarantees it for us.
Yeah, if the county can pool together a loan, the interest costs will be lower, and also they get a better rating than if one small school district goes out on their own.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Very, very good information on a very difficult topic.
Thank you. So, this is just the public hearing. We'll bring you the same presentation and the budget on June 3rd. Just not knowing the exact numbers, we're giving you the best information we have at this time. And as soon as the information becomes available, we'll revise our figures and give you updates monthly, in August, September, as soon as we have the information.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there any other discussion from my colleagues on the board? I see no shaking head. Kai, I don't see you, but I'm...
No questions from me.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go to 13B, and that is public hearing 2020-2021 reserves in excess of state minimum level. Josie.
Okay, I don't know if Will can bring it up, but this is kind of an item that's was passed several years ago. There was a law that if districts have reserves above the minimum, they need to have a public hearing and explain to the public, why do you have reserves above the minimum? So thanks, Will. That's the exact page we want to look at. For 2021, as we looked at in our presentation, we had about a 3.5% reserve. So we had 0.5% above the minimum. So we just need to do this in public and declare why we have above a 3% reserve. And so we only have 141,000 above in the Fund 17 and just over 15,000 above in Fund 1. So 160,000. And that is really to cover operating deficits. So it's a requirement. We just need to publicize why we have these reserves.
So do we have any discussion? For me, it's very straightforward that we have these. We might not be having these reserves for too much longer here. So, but I invite any discussion from my fellow board members.
No questions.
No questions from me.
No questions. I don't think we'll see this again.
Okay, thank you very much, Josie. Moving to item 13C, approval of resolution number 2020-05-20-F, budgetary increases and transfers at year end. Josie.
Okay, thank you. This is for the 1920 school year that we're currently in. And this is a standard procedure that allows the business office to close the books for the 2019 school year. So by the board approving this resolution, we can transfer funds from one category of unspent to a category where we might have overspent. An example would be where we had to hire a contractor in replacement of an employee. So this will be our just busy work through the end of the year, is just transferring expenditures between classifications to close the book so that all classifications have a positive balance. So it's really a routine item that we ask for your approval every year. Any questions?
I have none.
No questions from me.
No questions.
Okay, so given that, do I have a motion to approve the resolution 2020-05-20F, budgetary increases and transfers at year end?
I'll motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Campos, will you please take a vote?
Yes. Trustee Bradall?
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini?
Yes.
Trustee Doggett?
Yes.
Trustee Levin?
Yes.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Item 13D, Human Resources Update. Ms. Gavidia. You are on mute, Ms. Gavidia.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to give you a very quick update on our hiring for special education for the coming school year. As I've reported in the past, we're in pretty good shape for this time of the year. Our current remaining vacancies are 2 SDC teaching positions, 1 at Ocean Shore and 1 at IBL. And then 3.4, so that's 3 positions that are 2 days a week to account for small caseload overages on 3 different caseloads, 1 at Valley Mar, 1 at Cabrillo, and 1 at IBL. So we are going to continue plugging away at those. And I'm very optimistic that by the time the first day of school rolls around, we will be doing well in the special ed department with staffing. Any questions?
No questions from me.
No questions.
No questions from me.
No questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're at item 13E, hire of coordinator of instructional technology. Ms. Gavidia.
That's me again. Well, I am really I'm here to report to you that we have gone through the process after approving the position of coordinator of instructional technology. We went through the whole recruitment and interview process. We had a substantial pool of qualified candidates, and of those candidates, we narrowed down our selection to our own Christy Novak, and so I'm bringing that forward for you with our recommendation that you approve her hire as the new coordinator of instructional technology.
Thank you very much. I want to open it up to questions.
I have no questions.
No questions.
No questions. I think she'll do a great job.
Yeah, I have no questions either. I'm very excited at the direction that we're taking here, and think that it's a good one. So let's put this to a vote. Do I have a motion to approve the hire of Christy Novak as coordinator of instructional technology for the 2020-21 school year?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Campos, will you please take the vote?
Sorry about that. I'll try that again. Trustee Burdall?
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini?
Yes.
Trustee Doggett?
Yes.
Trustee Levin?
Yes.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are at item 13F, approval of resolution number 2020-05-20-G, education protection account. Ms. Peterson.
Thank you. So the education protection account was established in 2012, back when Prop 30 was approved by the voters. And if I remember correctly, this was in one of those budget downturns when the state was deferring payments to school districts. And Prop 30 was created as an education protection account to ensure that school districts receive their funding. And so this amount of money is set aside, and we do receive these funds quarterly as part of our LCFF funds. But these funds are not subject to deferrals. We automatically get this payment every quarter. And so for Pacifica School District, of course, our funds are mostly spent on compensation. And so these funds are allocated to teachers' salaries. And so you'll see there's a resolution attached, which you don't need to bring up, Will. And then there's also a sheet attached that shows that we receive $4.6 million of education protection account funds, and that we spend that $4.6 million on instruction. All of it goes towards instruction. And so this is a requirement that when Prop 30 was passed, the districts would demonstrate how their funds are spent, and that we would post this for the public. And so after the board meeting, this document gets posted on our website for the CDE review and approval. And so for 1920, it's $4.6 million, and for 2021, it's about $4.6 million. So I don't know if there's any questions about that. It's part of our budget, but it's a designated part of our budget that has to be, we have to display to the state how we're spending those funds.
Yeah, I have no questions. I mean, it's almost more of a formality in our district, right? Because it's just money that goes straight to staffing.
Correct.
I have no questions.
No question.
No questions.
Hello, coastal community.
Okay. This is an item we have to vote on. So do I have a motion to approve resolution number 2020-05-20G, education protection account?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I will second it. Suzanne, could you please take the vote?
Yes. Trustee Burdall?
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini?
Yes.
Trustee Doggett?
Yes.
Trustee Levin?
Yes.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are at item 13G, adoption of resolution number 2020-5-20H, grading during emergency school campus closures. Mr. Lucy.
All right. What I put before you is a resolution for approval, and this resolution is for grading during the school closures. And let me try to put that up for you. Or do you have a copy of it in front of you? Can't get it up there. Anyway, for some reason I can't get it. Let me see if I can get it up there for you. Oh, why isn't it not popping up there? Anyway, this resolution, the attached resolution that's attached was created due to the closing of school campuses, and as we move to distance learning. This resolution aligns with the California Department of Education's directive that the students shall be held harmless for their grades. There is a K-5 grading piece to this and a 6-8, a TK-5 and a 6-8. The TK-5 grading procedure is that the final grades will be in a narrative form in the comment section. And there'll be no marks in the body of the report card. And the 6-8, they will receive grades, but it's clearly stipulated in the resolution that there will be no harm from when we left schools to the final third trimester, basically, that they'll be held harmless for their grading during the distance learning period. This resolution was actually a collaboration amongst the teachers and administrators and support staff to help that helped develop it. So I put this forward for your recommendation for approval. Any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
I have no questions on it either. We've looked at this before, I think, so, or a draft of it anyway. We have to vote on this. Do I have a motion to approve? And I'm sorry, I lost my script here. Let me get it back here. I can't, and I didn't commit the resolution number to memory, sorry. Let's see here. So do I have to approve resolution number 2020-05-20-H, grading during emergency school campus closures?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
And Ms. Campos, will you please take the vote?
Yes. Trustee Bradall.
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini.
Yes.
Trustee Doggett.
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 13H, AMS contract for Ethernet switches and firewall programming and installation. Mr. Lucy.
Okay, so what I put before you is a contract through AMS Net for the installation of the Cisco switches and firewall content filtering. Just a little background information on this. We received this equipment in February, and this equipment was received through the 50% discounted rate through our E-rate category 2. And it was to replace equipment that was installed in 2014. Our network is in need of what's called a layer 3 programming configuration. So what this contract is approving is the idea that AMS will actually take this equipment, program it, and configure it, and then actually install it back at our sites, back at the various sites. As far as background about how we came to AMS, we utilized a piggyback contract that was extended, and which we had gone through California Public Agency to be a pre-qualified and approved contractor. So this is to actually program and configure and then also install this equipment. And this is the first of two steps that will occur. The first step being the programming and installing of these switches and this firewall, and then the next process, which is not put in front of you right now, but will be a contract to serve it to with regards to our servers. So this is kind of the first of a two-part process. Any questions?
Yeah.
Ms. Burkini.
Well, I was going to ask two questions, if could. One is, do we have a completion date for this contract?
Yeah, once this is approved, we will be setting up the scheduling, and it'll be done early in the summer. So it'll be done early in the summer.
And then this is funding. This is coming from Measure O funding, right?
It's coming from our E-rate Category 2 funding, which we get a discounted rate of. We were getting a 50% discounted rate. It was what we applied for back in earlier this school year.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Yeah, you had the exact same question I did, Ms. Burkini. I was just, what was the timing of this? So it sounds like it will all be done with plenty of time for next year, for next school year. Any other questions or discussion on this?
No questions from me.
Thank you. And I saw Ms. Bradal shaking her head, so I don't think there are any questions there. Okay, we must vote on this. So do I have a motion to approve the $54,300 contract with AMS.net to program and install the Cisco Meraki Ethernet switches and firewall web content filtering appliances?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Ms. Campos, will you please take the vote?
Okay, Trustee Bradal,
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini,
Yes.
Trustee Doggett,
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Item 13I, Mental Health Student Services Act Grant. Ms. Gavidia.
Yes, we are so very excited to bring you a little bit of information about this amazing opportunity that the Pacifica School District has become involved in. As I wrote in my memo to you, the Mental Health Student Services Act was passed by the California legislation in late last year. Early in this calendar year, we began to become aware of this opportunity, and we were invited by the county office to participate in partnering with the county office and a few other districts and the county mental health agency to compete for a part of this $50 million grant that was attached to this legislation. We are so fortunate in our district to have a pretty solid mental health program, and our lead mental health services provider, Christina Ierson, who is a licensed clinical social worker and also a credentialed school social worker, is here tonight to give you a little bit more background and information about this opportunity. So I will invite Christina to give her presentation.
Thank you, Maria. As Maria mentioned, the San Mateo County Office of Education reached out to us about this grant opportunity. This current grant would provide $6 million in funding to fund a new partnership between San Mateo County Office of Education, Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, and local school districts to develop and implement new mental health programming for students. So with this new partnership, the San Mateo County Office of Education put together a work group
of interested districts to first kind of identify what some of the student mental health needs are in our county, and then to develop a plan. And the need that was identified sort of across the board in our county that felt doable in the form of this grant was to develop or adopt a countywide social emotional learning curriculum. And this would be implemented ideally countywide, but in the form of this grant, the County Office of Ed was hoping to enlist a few pilot districts or districts that were willing to pilot this program. And what they were looking for in pilot districts is, with equity in mind, hoping to find districts that were interested that may not always have access to the same resources, both monetary and in staffing and in lots of other resources that many of our wealthy neighboring school districts have access to. So with that in mind, Pacifica was chosen as one of the pilot school districts, along with some of our neighbors in Daly City. And what this work group also decided was that we would look at and vet several social emotional learning curricula options, and we wanted to focus on curriculum that had really strong evidence supporting its efficacy with students. So the work group narrowed that down to 3 options for social emotional learning curricula that would serve students in grades pre-K through 12. And then we also approved 2 additional curricula options that don't necessarily have the same solid evidence-based support, but do have value in providing information and support for more diverse student groups, and that can also be used as supplemental aids with the other curriculum. So what would happen is if the county does win this grant, and I forgot to say it is pretty competitive. There are only 2 grants available for large counties in California, and San Mateo County is considered a large county. But if the County Office of Ed were granted this funding, what it would cover is the actual purchasing of the curriculum. So we would be able to buy curriculum for all of the schools in our district. It would also cover all of the training and professional development for staff. So staff would have all the training they needed to actually implement the curriculum. It would also allow for training in trauma-informed practices, and then also training for on this model known as CRIM or CRM, Community Resiliency Model, which is a trauma-informed approach to helping people develop skills to manage stress and really regulate the nervous system. And the thought behind that is to help our adults kind of practice their self-regulation skills so that, number one, they can be more present and available for students, but then also model those skills to students, because that's ultimately part of what we will be teaching through the social emotional learning curriculum. And then the other exciting piece is that the funding should allow for additional mental health staff. It's unclear at this point exactly what that would look like, but there is kind of this recognition that as we provide social emotional learning and content to our students, that will likely raise some issues or bring up some things that students might need additional support managing. So we want to make sure that we have the staffing available to do that. And then the other piece that the funding will cover and that would be our responsibility is in the form of data collection. Because we would be a pilot district, we would need to collect some information about our implementation and then also student outcomes to hopefully show that this was an effective way to improve student mental health, ultimately with the goal to report back to the county and also hopefully generalize this across our county so that all the rest of the districts in San Mateo County will adopt this sort of universal SEL curriculum approach. In terms of timeline, the grant proposal is due to the state in early June. The San Mateo County Office of Education is expecting to find out at some point over the summer whether they were selected. And the expected start date for the rollout of this programming is the fall. This was all obviously in the works before the shelter in place and pandemic and shift to virtual and distance learning. So all of that will definitely be taken into consideration as if we were to move forward with this opportunity. So we don't know exactly what that will look like and kind of how that might shift the timeline. But one thing that is clear is that we would want to make sure that all of the training and professional development is done before we would ever implement anything with students. So with that in mind, the San Mateo County Office of Ed is sort of preparing for the sort of expectation that a lot of the training might happen throughout the fall. And then it's possible that the implementation with students might not begin until spring of 2021. So that is a summary of the grant. Are there any questions?
Christina, this is Linda Burkini. You did mention, but I just wanted to, I missed it. What date would we know if?
I'm sorry, what date would we find out whether?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, when will we find out whether or not we received the grant?
I don't have an exact date, but when I spoke to Molly Henricks at the County Office of Ed, she said at some point over the summer. And I know that the due date for the grant application was extended because of the shelter in place. So we're hoping that with things going on, that doesn't delay the decision around the grant awards, but some of that is potentially up in the air because it is a state-run program, but hopefully summer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Christina, this is Jesse Levin. Thank you so much for making the presentation. This is a really exciting prospect, and I know the competition is steep, but I hope that the county proves victorious in grabbing one of these two. Clarification: we're one of 4 districts that have been invited to sign on to the grant proposal.
Yes, okay. I believe 1 in 4. Yeah, for the piloting of the proposal, and okay. If the County Office of Ed were to receive the grant, all 4 of those districts would participate. We've already been sort of pre-selected.
Great. Okay. So one thing that I wanted to point out, and you did mention that we would be required to provide data to help them understand what the outcomes of the effort would be. I guess I just want to know, do we know any more details on the plan of how much burden that would be on us in terms of assessments for students? Would it be, all students that have been touched by this curriculum or curricula, as the case may be, or would it be a sample? I'm just wondering how much additional assessment might be put upon us.
I don't have those details currently. I do believe some of that might depend on how our district chooses to implement the curriculum. So although we would be chosen to pilot the program, we do have a little bit of autonomy in deciding what that might look like if we wanted to choose certain grade levels, if we want to do, all grade levels. So I think some of those decisions would impact our data collection piece, but that was an area that funding would cover. So I imagine there would be some support from the county office and BHRS.
Okay, and so we have some autonomy. It would seem that the county itself might have some might want to take on a strategy where where multiple districts choose the same curricula, because that will kind of strengthen the results of any evaluation they do. But it remains to be seen. But what I'm hearing from you is that each district is going to have autonomy to kind of pick and choose amongst the approved curricula that we sign up for.
Yes, so and there are 3 of those approved curricula, and they do target different grade levels. So really, specifically for our grade level of pre-K through 8, there would only be a couple that might make sense for us. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Christina?
Oh, I guess my only other question is, would it help the grant proposal if I mean I almost assume that they have to have sign on from the different districts, so that Superintendent Olson, you might be writing a letter saying we are completely committed.
I was actually just waiting for this. It's sitting on my desk, and I'm going to sign it and fax it tomorrow if I see. This isn't for your approval. It's really for your information.
Yeah.
But if you think about the timing of this, overwhelmingly, what many experts say, coming back to school or even for an extended distance learning, the thing that families and students need the most is social emotional learning. And we're really fortunate to be building on a strong base in Pacifica. As Maria said, that we have a strong mental health program, that we've had an integrated model of social emotional learning that's been paired up with Readers and Writers Workshop and the curriculum that we use. But in our LCAP engagement, what we were hearing from teachers is that we would really like some kind of social emotional curriculum. So it just is kismet that we happen to be sitting here not knowing what returning to school will look like, that Christina gets to present, and that we're up against, that we get to be a part of this. So sometimes things work out.
Great. So in your letter, a lot of that will go in there because we want to maximize the chances that the county gets the grant.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any more discussion from my fellow colleagues?
No questions from me.
No. Okay, I saw heads shaking there. So we are going to then move on. Thank you so much, Christina, for the information. And sorry, Maria, what was that?
No, I was just saying thank you to Christina.
Oh, okay. So thank you from all of us, Christina, for providing that exciting presentation. Item 14, board bylaws, board policies, and administrative regulations. 14A, Exhibit 4040, employee use of technology, and Exhibit 6163.4, student use of technology. Second reading. Mr. Lucy.
So, I'm on. Okay, sorry. So what you have in front of you, I got to make sure I'm always on, like I'm thinking. But what you have in front of you, you've seen already at the board work study and the special board meeting. And it is with regards to our acceptable use policy for our employees and our students. And what this is, again, just to remind you, is there was language added to 2 sections of these exhibits, and they were under electronic communications, and the language that was added was with regards to chat rooms, online discussion groups, and social media that have, or the first 2 that have actually been utilized during this distance learning period, and there was just a series of agreements there. So you've seen this before. This is what I'm asking now is for approval for this to be added to our policy.
Discussion. Do I have questions from my fellow board members?
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
Yeah, I have no questions either. I was satisfied with it before, so. So I guess we have to vote on this one now. Do I have a motion to approve policies E6163.4 student use of technology and E4040 employee use of technology as presented?
I'll motion to approve.
I will second. Ms. Campos, will you please take the vote?
Yes. Trustee Bradall,
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini,
Yes.
Trustee Doggett,
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, we are at item 15, future agenda items. Superintendent Olson. And you are muted.
This has been a day for not remembering to unmute, right? So I know that I see all of you, many of you in some of the county meetings and others. So I know that you are very, very busy, but I do want to talk to you about the schedule for board meetings. Typically in the summer, we would maybe skip a July meeting. That's not one I think we can skip this year. I think that's when the plan will be more finalized and we'll be able to share that information with you. And not finalized by finalized, I think that more information in terms of public health will be apparent at that time. And so I will need to communicate with you around that July 15th meeting. We were also hoping maybe to skip the June 24th meeting, but I think we're going to need that meeting. Number one, because we will have more information, and I think the more that we can keep the communication open, the better. And that we may be doing some work around tentative agreements with our labor partners or also sunshining for future negotiations. So I would ask if it's okay with you to have both the January 24th and the July 15th meeting. Typically, one of the reasons for the canceling the July meeting is many people are traveling. And I think that this is going to be a unique year. But if you are fortunate to be able to escape with your family, the meeting will continue to be held virtually. And so depending on your Wi-Fi connection, you could still join us depending on that. So would it be okay if we continued to plan for a June 24th and a July 15th meeting?
I'm happy. I'm happy with both of those.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
That's fine.
As long as it's virtual, then we don't have a problem.
Perfect. Okay. I just think that's going to be a really important crunch time, and I can't begin to predict what information we'll be sharing at that time. So I really do want to thank you for your leadership at this time. These are really, really hard times, and the fact that we're able to get through a number of very difficult topics like the budget, that we have put ourselves in position to think about our social emotional learning. We are in good shape for this. It's just we don't know what to expect. And so as leaders that are out there taking people's questions, I do thank you for always getting them to me so that I can help answer any of those. Are there any topics that you feel like you would add, or do you feel like our plate is full enough? And if we stay focused on COVID-19 and getting through the budget and the requirements put forth by the state?
I think we have more than enough on our plate. That's my opinion.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Looks good.
If I can jump in just for a second, is that all right?
Of course.
There's one that's on the federal addendum and the consolidated application. That may not be on the June 3rd meeting, and I'm sorry I didn't inform Suzanne and Heather of that ahead of time because there's been a delay in the spring release of the consolidated app and the federal addendum. I think we're going to be approving that in conjunction with the December 15th due date for the LCAP 2021. So that may not be there.
Yeah, like many things that are coming from the state is that we are staying flexible and trying to meet any deadlines that are put in front of us, but know that that the state is making as many changes as we are as well. So, okay, without that, I hand it over to President Levin to adjourn.
Okay. Well, imagine that we are adjourning earlier than on the agenda. Adjourning this meeting at 9:08 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Have a good night. Be safe.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Everyone.
Good night.